Well, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to you. And it is fantastic to be here at the 2018 International Forum for the Aftercare of Racehorses. I'm Caroline Searcy from Australia. I host and produce a weekly thoroughbred breeding show called Bred to Win on the TV channel Sky Thoroughbred Central, in which I often place a focus on the importance of looking after our thoroughbreds for life. I'm also on the board of Thoroughbred Breeders New South Wales, as well as being a small-time but very passionate thoroughbred breeder and racehorse owner. It's fantastic to have you all here at the second IFAR conference in Seoul, and thanks to our fabulous Korean hosts for your great hospitality. Throughout this week at the Asian Racing Conference, we'll hear of some wonderful work being done in the thoroughbred industry, covering all facets of racing, from wagering to media to stewarding to integrity, racetrack management and safety. I would venture to say this afternoon and again on Thursday morning in the equine welfare session, you'll be hearing one of the most significant and necessary topics of the entire conference, and that is the aftercare of our thoroughbreds. In New South Wales, where I'm based, less than 2 years ago, the entire industry of greyhound racing was banned, and while the ban was overturned, it was evidence of how a social movement against a long-established industry can threaten the existence of something that many people assume will just continue as it is well into the future. So what does a greyhound ban have to do with thoroughbred racing? Of course, a hugely successful, big-budget industry around the globe upon which so many people rely for their livelihood. Well, 2018 is a very different landscape to what we've lived through around the globe until now. Not only is communication between nations and individuals as easy as a click of a mouse, most countries with a racing industry are becoming more and more urbanised, meaning people who understand how much we love our horses are further and further removed from actually seeing that. And with the focus in racing very much on wagering and fashion, and particularly in Australia on drinking at the races and having a good time, a lot of these things are seen by particularly younger people as an example of the frivolous nature of racing. And there's a view that racehorses are just commodities that the industry has no care for once their racing days are over. So the industry on a global level is very much on notice. It must be proactive about the welfare of its showpieces, its athletes, of course, the horses. As you will hear from the Chair of Racing Australia, Francis Nelson QC, on Thursday morning, in Australia, the racing authorities have been very proactive about addressing this issue. In 2014, it was made compulsory for anyone retiring a racehorse to list the current owners and tell Racing Australia what's planned for that horse post-racing. The total returns for retirement in that really short time are around 24,000 horse details. And within that time, they've also found 20% of horses are retired for breeding purposes, and 60% have found an equestrian career. In August 2016, breeding notification rules came into place in Australia as part of an effort to enhance the responsibility and the traceability of every thoroughbred born. The foal's birth and ownership details must be notified within 30 days of birth. In New South Wales, 1% of prize money from every race, whether that be a $100,000 Saturday metropolitan race or a $20,000 country race, which are held day after day, that's all been gathered, that 1%, by the regulatory body in New South Wales, Racing New South Wales, to fund thoroughbred aftercare, with a property acquired a few hours out of Sydney as a base for retraining and rehoming work. In Victoria and other states in Australia, their off-the-track programs reward competitors for taking on thoroughbreds with extra prize money in equestrian classes and a strong promotional push about some of the fantastic ex-racehorses who are excelling in their new lives. I think personally there are many, many ways to encourage the general equestrian world to take on thoroughbreds, and one thing I personally did last year in New South Wales was to raise the prize money for the thoroughbred classes at the Sydney Royal Easter Show from a paltry $75, as racing would say, competing for ribbons, up to $1,000 per class. The response from the people I asked to put in that money, from breeders, from Inglis, the auction house, from the trainer of the horse who now finally is the world's best racehorse, Winx, Chris Waller, he was right behind the plan to reward people taking thoroughbreds off the track and taking them to show classes at the Royal Show, and he donated just instantly $1,000 for that prize money. And the reaction, of course, from the competitors, the winners, the runners-up, who also received a part of the prize money, that was just fantastic. They were recognised for their efforts in taking on the thoroughbreds and retraining them. And, of course, that money greatly assisted them in having that thoroughbred at one of Australia's most prestigious horse shows for the entire week they were there. We learned of the value of this sort of exercise in Kentucky, where I was fortunate enough to have been at the first Godolphin Aftercare conference, along with a number of the current IFAR committee. We attended the Kentucky Equine Makeover, which was just fantastic. There were hundreds of thoroughbreds that had been retrained only in the months leading up to the makeover, and they competed for fantastic prize money. Some were on-sold to good homes, some were kept by their retrainers and continued to compete with them. So there are so many great examples of thoroughbreds having fabulous, productive, much-loved roles off the track. This afternoon we'll be hearing from the experts in the field of thoroughbred welfare and retraining, from the UK's fabulous organisation, the Retraining of Racehorses, or ROR. We'll hear from Di Arbuthnot, the head of Godolphin's Global Charities, Diana Cooper, Dr Jinkat Kim of the Korea Racing Authority, Dr Cheol Ja Kwon from Jiangsu Stud Farm. From New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, Martin Burns will speak this afternoon. The Japan Racing Association's Seiji Yoko. Jock Hutchison from Horseback UK, who does fabulous work using thoroughbreds to assist returned military personnel. Erin Crady from Thoroughbred Charities of America. And our keynote speaker is Lyndon Barons, the Chief Executive of the National Horse Racing Authority of South Africa. So while you can direct some questions immediately after some of our speakers have been up, we will have an open audience forum that's at around 5 to 4. And around about that time, we'll be joined by the IFHA Executive Committee, who are meeting, I think we can hear them next door, and they will finish their council meeting around 4 p.m. and join us here. The whole point of what IFAR is trying to do is make sure it's not just a few people who are engaged in this issue of thoroughbred welfare right throughout life, but it is the responsibility of the whole racing and breeding industry. So on behalf of IFAR, thank you for attending today's conference to learn more about this vital cog in the wheel of worldwide racing and breeding. I'd now like to introduce you to the first of our two speakers discussing IFAR. So this is IFAR, an introduction, its history and mission. One of the most advanced systems, as I mentioned just before, of rewarding people for rehoming ex-racehorses is found in the UK, thanks in large part to our next speaker, Di Arbuthnot, the chair of IFAR and chief executive of the organisation Retraining of Racehorses. ROR has been just a major contributor to the founding of the International Forum for the Aftercare of Racehorses, and Di and her team have been involved from the very first Global Aftercare Conference in Kentucky, the second in Newmarket, and last year's inaugural IFAR conference in Washington. Then you'll hear from Diana Cooper, one of the most vibrant, passionate advocates for the aftercare of racehorses who you will find anywhere in the world. Throughout her work at Godolphin, heading up Sheikh Mohammed's global charitable organisation, Diana's also been instrumental in forming the body that is IFAR and behind the organisation of the global conferences I just mentioned. Diana will talk about thoroughbred aftercare from an owner's perspective. First, though, let's have a look at some of the work of ROR on the video screens, and then please welcome Di Arbuthnot.
When your time runs out and you're looking for a place to land, I'll step from the shadow into the palm of your hand. When you're out of love, I'll be what you're looking for, even if it's not who I am.
Inside the final furlong, Purple Moon, Honolulu stands well, then Scriptwriter, 100 yards left to go, Purple Moon, a couple of lengths to Honolulu, the favourite wins. Still back on his hocks as the stall.
I can bend, I can break, I can shift, I can shape, blaze a trail through the driving rain. Girl, I can change for you. I can change for you. When your time can change. I can change for you. I can change. I can change for you. I can bend, I can break, I can shift, I can shape, blaze a trail through the driving rain. Girl, I can change for you. I can slip, I can slide, I can run, I can hide, blaze a trail through the driving rain. Girl, I can change for you. I'll be what you're looking for.
Good afternoon all and welcome. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Di Busnott and I have the real privilege of chairing IFAR, the International Forum for the Aftercare of Racehorses. I do have a day job, retraining of racehorses, which is British Horse Racing's official charity for the aftercare of the former racehorse. You'll no doubt have spotted, when we were watching that film, that the song you were listening to was I Can Change. Now, this was put together by former jockey Luke Harvey, who's a huge supporter of retraining of racehorses. He's also a TV pundit. And it really does demonstrate what we're trying to put across today, that they have a life after racing and they are multi-talented. So I Can Change absolutely encapsulates the key message when it comes to the aftercare of racehorses. And contrary to the stereotype that they're bred for racing and they actually can't do anything else, they're intelligent, they're versatile, as the video highlighted. I'd like to think that I Can Change is also an appropriate slogan for those racing jurisdictions that have yet to put in place measures and the infrastructure to promote the aftercare of racehorses. Even in the short time that IFAR has been in existence, substantial progress has been made in this area. So IFAR, the International Forum, it was established in July 2016, unveiled at a forum, Lifetime Care for Thoroughbreds, hosted by Godolphin in Newmarket, England, and included representatives from Australia, France, Great Britain, Ireland, Japan, and the United States. The idea was to establish an independent forum to raise awareness globally of the importance of welfare for thoroughbred racehorses and to develop a network that would allow best practice and to be easily shared among aftercare organisations. It is the shared view of the IFAR steering group that the welfare of racehorses throughout their lifetime is one of the single most important issues currently facing the racing industry. A key function of IFAR is to promote and provide help and support, sharing expertise and good practice on a global basis. We believe that every racing jurisdiction should take steps to develop an infrastructure that promotes and caters for the welfare of horses when they finish racing. And IFAR is here to help all these recognised racing jurisdictions achieve that. Furthermore, it is understood that each jurisdiction is unique, has its own challenges, but also its own opportunities. The forum is led by a steering group comprising of representatives who work with and alongside the International Federation of the Horse Racing Authorities, the IFHA. Maintaining close links with the racing authorities is so very important. In addition to raising awareness globally and sharing best practice, IFAR's other roles and objectives include increasing understanding and education regarding lifetime aftercare. Education is such a key part of this, including end-of-life issues to all international racing communities and the general public, and to promote the versatility, adaptability, and potential of the thoroughbred in equestrian support. Some global success stories. Now you'll see here two wonderful pictures. Carlos Parro, Summon Up the Blood, representing Brazil at Rio Olympics, and Boyd Martin, Blackfoot Mystery, representing USA. Now both these two came through, particularly Summon Up the Blood was actually trained in England by somebody called Mick Shannon, and actually was then taken on by Carlos and schooled to go to Rio. And then Boyd Martin, a long-time advocate of using these lovely horses for eventing, Both these horses did incredibly well at the Olympics, and both marvellous clear rounds, few time faults, but actually both finished in the top 20. This was a seriously good message coming out of the Olympic sport, that these horses can and do a great job, sometimes to elite level. And even recently at Badminton Horse Trials, a large event at home, we had Arctic Soul representing, well, actually raced in Ireland, and that, of course, finished third, again, marvellous cross-country, and one of the 4 clears show jumping, and obviously on the shortlist to go to the World Equestrian Games later on. So what we're saying here is that any former racehorse can thrive, and also, but not all of them can actually go on to competitive careers. And in some cases, they go on help in therapy. And we've actually got Oscar, Dame Judi Dench, who some of you might have heard of, Oscar-winning actress. She has a wonderful horse, and she's put into therapy in riding for the disabled at home. And you're going to hear from Jock shortly, who's been doing some wonderful work with an ex-racehorse I know particularly well, and he's doing some wonderful work helping with his servicemen up in Aberdeen. From all over the world, there are comparable stories of former racehorses adapting and doing remarkable things. And one key thing we should never forget nor underestimate is the value of the bond that exists between man and horse, and in particular with the thoroughbred, a breed created by man, so perhaps it's no wonder that the bond is so strong both during and after their racing careers. This bond between man and horse is perhaps something that we who live and work with them take for granted. Similarly, most of us like to think that we're doing a very good job when it comes to horse welfare. And we know that the people working in the industry are doing a great job, and welfare is a priority. But to many of those not involved in the sport, racing treats the horses like commodities, and perhaps the best gauge as to whether such a view or claim has any substance is how we look after our racehorses when they no longer entertain us on the race course. So IFAR, the history of IFAR, this has been in existence now since 2016, as Caroline mentioned, launched at in Kentucky, where many gathered under the Godolphin umbrella to discuss ways of how we were moving forward and how we could move forward. And I think this came to fruition in Washington last year, where at the Pan American Conference. And much was achieved at that conference, featuring a range of discussions, including the key area of owner responsibility. The key objectives for here, year 2, are to extend IFAR's geographical reach and engagement by hosting this conference here in Seoul, to strengthen the network and to promote collaboration between racing and aftercare providers. By year 3, now this is going to be a challenge, we want IFAR to be a world leader in aftercare strategy and to host our 3rd conference in Europe. Further objectives for year 3 include all jurisdictions signing up to an aftercare code of practice and encouraging the development of traceable systems to better track horses once they leave racing. Long term, our vision for all those horse racing jurisdictions to have an aftercare program in place, together with comprehensive measures that advocate and educate on lifetime care and share best practice through IFAR. With IFAR's help, in time, we want the global racing industry to be able to present an informed position and an unlimited front on aftercare issues, as well as forging new partnerships and on aftercare initiatives. These are ambitious, but they really reflect how important we consider this issue to be. There is no doubt in our minds that developing robust models to provide effective aftercare for racehorses is integral to growing confidence in horse racing and ensuring it's attractive to current and prospective supporters. I'd now like to introduce Diana. Diana, as you've already said, Caroline, a huge supporter from her early days in Ireland with a father, a very renowned bloodstock agent, a mother who still stewards in Ireland to this day. So she's steeped in horses, and obviously through her work with Godolphin, and the huge, huge support Godolphin have given us in the very early stages. Diana, welcome.
Thank you very much indeed, Di, and indeed Caroline. I'm very proud to be here today and to give a bit of an owner's perspective about thoroughbred aftercare. Let me just see where we are now. There we go, an owner's perspective. Many of you, and indeed I hope most of you, will know about Godolphin, but a brief overview. We are the global breeding and horse racing operation founded 25 years ago by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who's Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates and ruler of Dubai. We operate from our home in Dubai and through our facilities in America, Australia, France, Ireland, Japan, and the United Kingdom. I am lucky to have worked for Godolphin since its inception, helping to manage the horses, but I'm proud that this role has kind of evolved to put me in a position today to advocate for those same horses and to tell you more about our global lifetime aftercare program. So, why does aftercare matter to Godolphin? Well, it's widely known that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed has a passion for racing and breeding. This, however, is very much underlined by his innate love of horses. Because of his stallion operation, the Dali Stallion Parade there, his stallion operation worldwide, about 5,000 foals are probably born each year. The biggest owner of horses in training globally, Godolphin races roughly 4,000 horses. It is our key business. We retain some throughout their lives, but the majority will be sold to race and continue to give pleasure in all international racing countries. Our strong sense of corporate social responsibility led to the establishment of Godolphin Lifetime Care, which reflects our commitment to these thoroughbreds from cradle to grave. Godolphin Lifetime Care, as Di has explained, was integral to the creation of IFAR and is proud to help support this conference. Our first step in that was the establishment of an internal rehoming program across all territories in which we operate. The national progression after that was to focus on horses we are responsible for breeding but cannot retain. The horse, therefore, is why aftercare matters to Godolphin. But another element is wanting to safeguard our industry for future generations to enjoy. We know that the vast majority of horses are loved and appropriately cared for, but in this world of social media, community expectations evolve very quickly. Elements of society and life that were enjoyed in recent times have become intolerable in some areas, very much so. A pendulum shifts, and suddenly social license dictates. This is, just as you know, merely a snapshot. It's a Google search of horse neglect. And I underline nothing whatsoever to do with the lovely horse that is enjoying winning his race on the left-hand side. But this snapshot does illustrate what images are freely available. And too many similar stories will lead to this. No more lovely horses enjoying their racing career. We enjoy an industry that gives pleasure to millions, that gives livelihoods to hundreds of thousands, and it needs to be properly managed. So what are we doing at Godolphin? Well, we've adopted a proactive approach because our founder firmly believes in the welfare of horses. The pleasure they give, having been created for our pleasure, is deserving of a happy life from cradle to grave. We talk about it constantly, Colour Vision, Gold Cup winner to show jumper, social media, videos, Instagram, Facebook. We want the world to know the good stories, the truly happy stories that are out there. Our response, tangibly, over the years, actually is best illustrated by this short video. If you can roll it there, please. Thank you.
So the horses come to us here at Canterbury Racecourse in Sydney. We normally get about half a dozen, maybe 10 horses at a time from Godolphin. They're usually gifted to us and they're always a good quality horse. The conformation's really good, their handling has been good, so we look forward to getting them, and we always know they're going to be good quality horses with good brains, and it makes our job a little bit easier. So we'll see how he goes today when we get him out on the street. So every now and then I just stop and go through this process, just get him squished back on again, get him to understand that we're just doing the same sort of thing we did in the arena, but now we're just in a different environment.
We've had two lovely horses from Godolphin rehoming, very different characters. Cayman has been an absolute joy to work with, very trusting. We've told him everything's all right, and he's just taken everything as all right because we've told him so. Shubat, very different character, taken a bit more time to settle down to us and decide we're all right, but now he knows we are all right. He's doing the most amazing things. They're both absolute joys, a real credit to the whole team at Godolphin rehoming.
I've never been around such an eager bunch, and all of the Japanese riders are just so into this clinic. It's awesome. I really feel like they're all here to learn, and they're really trying hard to improve their horses and learn the art of training a thoroughbred.
Racehorses have so much to give outside of racing. They usually finish their racing career relatively early. They can range from 4 up to 9, and even a 9-year-old, they have many more years to give. We make the transition from them being a racehorse to a riding horse. We're putting in the basics, we're helping that horse along the way.
So, there are a lot of voices out there that want to talk about what they do with horses, and I hope we hear more of them as the years go by. But today, what owners need from industry leadership? Godolphin Lifetime Care's work is labour-intensive and expensive. We know we are lucky to be able to do it, and that's why we do it, because we can. For all horses, however, the industry must establish that aftercare is non-negotiable. We need leadership from the governing bodies of the industry to provide a baseline of care. Accountability can only be achieved through traceability. Primary racing authorities need to be proactive and to make aftercare part of the fabric of the industry. And we need to have financial and regulatory conditions established so we can stand proud to be owners of these horses, confident that we are part of an ethical and all-encompassing industry so that racing is safeguarded for future generations to enjoy as much as we are lucky to. Thank you, and please help.
Thank you, Diana. That was fantastic, and Di as well. So plenty of food for thought there. Now we are going to keep going with the trying to keep on time. We're all, as I mentioned before, extremely grateful to our Korean friends for not only hosting the Asian Racing Conference, but also for supporting this session, the International Forum for the Aftercare of Racehorses. Our next speaker will highlight the importance now being placed on the topic of aftercare by the Korean racing industry. Dr. Jinkap Kim has been an equine vet since 1993, and he'll talk about the need to provide the correct veterinary support for thoroughbreds. Please welcome also the Chief Manager of the clinic sector, the Korean Racing Authority's Equine Medical Centre, and also Dr. Cheol Jae Kwon, who's going to speak immediately after. He's the Chief Manager of Horse Industry Support at Jiangsu Stud Farm, and his work involves educating Korean breeders about aftercare, as well as improving safety for people riding thoroughbreds. Would you please welcome Dr. Jinkap Kim and Dr. Cheol Jae Kwon to follow.
Thank you for your introductions. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to have a chance to speak about the welfare program of the retired racehorse. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about welfare programs of other countries, and then some programs of Korea, and then I wanted to have a chance to look at the limitation of these programs. And then I wanted to suggest some idea. What's the welfare program for the retired racehorses? There are some programs which provide restart the second life as broodmares or stallions. And then some other horses can have a chance to change their role as equestrian horses by retraining. And then some horses, unhappily, humane euthanized them. And then some horses used as ornamental horses in diverse conditions. These conditions will be different between the countries. I wanted to issue, what do you think about these programs? What's the programs the horses really want? Let's see some programs of the other country. Yeah, there is programs which provide funding for the retired thoroughbreds. They supported the money to look for the adaptation facilities, and then they also pay for the retraining or transferring, something like that. And there is another program which provide a free vaccination to abandoned horses, and then some other program which provide retraining as 3-day event horses or dressage horses. And then let's see what's happening in Korea. There are 1,600 retired horses every year. Among that horses, only 170 horses can restart second life as a broodmare. And then about 580 horses used as equestrian horses. But among this number, only 10%, less than 10% can be properly trained. And then about 20 horses disqualified as racehorses. And there are 650 more horses, but we couldn't trace where are the last horses. Now look at this, some programs which we are introducing, we are doing in Seoul Racetrack. We provide financial sports program for euthanasia, which is support the expense of humane euthanasia racehorses with severe and catastrophic injuries. We introduced this program last year, but last year only 26 horses were covered by this program. Why these so small numbers are covered? It's because most of the owners prefer to choose insurance compensation because of the financial issue, problems. We provide another program which protects the right to be treated properly. The reason why we introduced this program is a lot of injured racehorses retired without proper treatment for the insurance compensations. So we are going to provide free diagnosis, operation, and even post-operation care for the racehorses, but only if they are injured during the race and the burial trial. We started this program in this year. By this program, we protected and improved the right to be treated properly. But until now, it's May, but the number is quite small. We provide retraining. Yeah. Give the horse a chance to retrain as equestrian horses. Yeah. Dr. Kwon is going to talk about this program later. When I see the programs of other countries and in Korea, I could have found some limits of the programs. In Korea, the problem of the horse insurance is serious. About 1,000 horses insured in Seoul Racetrack, and then insurance compensation ratio is 70 to 95%. So most of the owners wanted to receive insurance compensations, then treat the horse properly or give them another chance. And then the number of horses which can be retrained is so small. Only 50 horses among 1,600 retired horses per year. The other limit is financial problem. It's very difficult to make fund, and it's very expensive to take care of the horse after retired. When we think about retired horse, we think or dream this kind of picture, this kind of conditions. But in reality, maybe the horses are in these conditions or like this. This picture comes from Google. My boss wanted to identify it. So what do we have to do now? I suggest let's find realistic solutions. So I'm going to suggest 3 things. First, I suggest to prolong career as a racehorse. If the horses can stay as a racehorse more long time, they'll be well cared, well treated, and they'll be happy. To do that, maybe we may introduce new race plan, like to introduce minor league of the racehorses. And then we have to develop clinical level and systems. So even the injured horses can recover and return to the racetrack again. My second suggestion is to increase the number of racehorses working as broodmare. To do that, to encourage domestic productions, then import. I told you before, only 170 horses can be used as a broodmare among 1,600 retired horses. It's too small. And my third suggestion is a little bit, it's time to prepare a proper criteria process, facility, and then sporting program to assist the euthanasia. We don't like to talk about these issues, but yeah, I think it's time to think about that. Korea just started to think about welfare program a couple of years ago. We need a lot of ask and advice from you who have a lot of experience. I expect that kind of help. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start. Good afternoon. My name is Kwon Chol-jae, working at Ikain Medical Center, Seoul, as a vet. I'd like to speak of improving the thoroughbred riding horse safety in Korea. I think a better use of a thoroughbred riding horse is good for the welfare. Present conditions and the problems of retired thoroughbred riding horses. 1,600 thoroughbred horses are retired from the race track in Korea. Okay, the problems as a habit of a racetrack horse standing up, fiercely running, etc. still exist. Falling accidents happened. Obstacle for development of horse industry. Horse abuse occurred by bad habits. Reason for riding: cheap price, about $1,000 US. If imported, more than $15,000. Opening of new horse riding clubs is to procure. Riding possibility, expert opinion in Korea. Possible, many marriage, cheap price, previously trained to ride, Japan's case. Impossible, dangerous, hard to change its habit, high cost of retraining. Simple comparison with Japan is not possible. Conflict between expert opinions. Racehorse and riding horse. Average length of a gallop stride is 8 meters. Right side, stride length is 4 meters. Prefer within 2 meters of stride length. Crane Riding Club, Japan. Biggest riding club in Japan. 38 horse riding courses, 2,000 employees, 36,000 members. Total revenue $200 million. Management characteristics: Out of 2,700 horses, about 80% horses are retired thoroughbreds. Falling accidents are unusual. Reality of Korea. Reuse of retired race horses. Increased danger, obstacle to horse industry. Blocking reuse of retired race horses or utilizing expensive imported horses cannot be the measure. For treatment, perform the business demonstration. Main purpose is to improve safety of retired racehorse. Summary of a promotion plan, learning and education of training skills. Safety evaluation, certification and auction. Plan 1, learning and education of training skills. Plan 2, safety and performance evaluation of retired horses. Plan 3, BRT certification. The certification system has the effect of encouraging production of good horses with a recommended consumption effect. Horses with over 80 points get BRT certification. The BRT stands for Best Retired Thoroughbred. BRT certified horses will list in homepage and horse passport. Expect price differentiation according to certification in horse trade. Making evaluation plan contains confirmation, calmness, dressage, jumping. The calmness points are 47. Qualification for participation is less than 2 years after retirement. It's my opinion, but I think we conducted the world's first safety and performance evaluation for the retired riding horses. It's designed. We had 4 times previous competitions. 2016, 2 times, and total 109 horses participated. And 2017, we had 2 times competitions. Evaluation content and video. It's walking over bars. Moving backward. Spray. Umbrella. Ball. Balloons. Ball. Balloon. Vinyl floor. Hanging obstacles. Hopping on the horse without assistance. Dressage. Jumping. Okay, result, presenting riding horse is standard and improvement of horse safety. Result 2, reuse for excellent riding horses. Selecting points for thoroughbred as your riding horse are calmness, health, etc. Calmness, checking weight. She if surprised easily by touching face, ears, side belly, and when outside from stable. Ask for a horse's character. Possible percentage, 30 to 50% of retired thoroughbred. Survey result content is a BRT competition helpful for safety or riding and to improve awareness of safety and to improve safety of regular riding horse. We get a very positive result. Result third, improve animal welfare and discover economical value. BRT feedback. Korea and Japan will adopt BRT. Share much Korean crop. The last one. My horse, which is BRT certified, did not surprise by deer during trail riding. It is very effective for safety riding. Summary of business result. First, reinforce private capability by providing right direction and training motivation. Second, rapid improvement of safety riding. Third, enhance welfare of a retired horse and rediscover its value. Thank you.
Slide thing behind. Thanks, Dr. Chol Jai Kwon and Dr. Jinkap Kim. It's fabulous to hear. The issue of thoroughbred welfare is obviously being well and truly addressed here in Korea. Just a reminder too that you can use Twitter if you hear something in particular that's interesting during this afternoon's session. You can tweet either through @IFAR News or also include at 37th ARC. So if you want to put anything out, just highlighting what's being discussed here this afternoon, and you can certainly find some follow-up on those Twitter handles as well. Well, in a still fabulously rural country, as well as having some magnificent cities, I must say, New Zealand still has a very high population of horses, including, of course, thoroughbreds. Many regions where a great number of New Zealanders still own and ride their own horses. Our next speaker, Martin Burns from New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, last year reviewed thoroughbred welfare in his country from a breeding perspective through horses' racing careers and into their well-being after racing. Martin is also General Manager of Racing and Equine Welfare, overseeing the New Zealand Stud Book, licensing, race programming, as well as being Chairman of the New Zealand Horse Ambulance Trust and Deputy Chair of the New Zealand Equine Health Association. Please welcome to discuss a partnership's approach to thoroughbred welfare and aftercare, Martin Burns.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Caroline for the warm introduction and for the opportunity to share with you a New Zealand perspective on the welfare and aftercare of our thoroughbreds. It is an honour to speak at IFAR, and I congratulate Diana, Di and the other organisers for planning such an interesting series of speakers with whom I'm very pleased to share the stage. In my presentation, I'll outline the approach to thoroughbred welfare that has been adopted by New Zealand Thoroughbred Racing, NZTR, and our current range of aftercare initiatives. In each case, it's the partnerships approach that I wish to emphasise. I won't dwell too long on this, but it's worth noting the New Zealand context. Horsemanship and an affinity for horses are long-standing traditions in New Zealand, which as a settler nation was developed with horses as the backbone of agriculture, local transport and military. New Zealand remains a largely rural economy. Thoroughbred racing was developed in New Zealand in the 1840s and formalised under a national body in 1893. With a strong and broad equestrian community in New Zealand, Off-the-track thoroughbreds have a good chance of finding an active and well cared for future in a variety of suitable pursuits, whether as sport horses, polo ponies or pleasure horses. Many have proven to be excellent international sport horses. In 2017, NZTR undertook a comprehensive review of thoroughbred welfare, which included broad consultation of interested parties, both within and outside the racing and breeding communities. Presented above is our vision for thoroughbred welfare, which is anchored on the modern animal welfare concepts, i.e. a good life as the ideal, and is pragmatic to the realities of racing, breeding and retirement. How did NZTR's thoroughbred welfare strategy develop? Consultation took place with a number of groups including government agencies and animal welfare advocates. We concluded that it would be appropriate and practical to adopt the 5 domains model as the basis for thoroughbred welfare guidelines. Whilst thoroughbreds are high value animals that are trained as elite athletes, there are some compromises on the horse's welfare. The 5 domains welfare framework acknowledges that, on balance, and across the 5 welfare aims and provisions, the horse can and must be provided with a life worth living. Our thoroughbred welfare guidelines are currently being updated accordingly, in conjunction with changes to the NZTR rules of racing, which I shall mention shortly. In considering not just our thoroughbred strategy and initiatives, but also how we enhance the aftercare of our horses, NZTR has involved a large number and range of other bodies. This has not only provided a necessarily broad range of perspectives, it has enabled us, as a relatively small organisation, to leverage the skills and resources of others with whom we can identify and share a common goal in the welfare of the horse. Importantly also, NZTR's intentions and efforts are in the process shared and become more broadly understood by parties that are very influential. This in turn assists in underpinning the future approval, or at least the legitimacy, of racing in New Zealand in the minds of our public and our legislators. I mentioned earlier our intended amendments to the rules of racing. The key pending changes are welfare obligations and enhancements to data capture to best ensure traceability from foaling to death or retirement from racing or breeding. Introduction of the concept of the accountable person. This defined person being the person responsible for the welfare of the thoroughbred, including a duty of care and decisions relating to the retirement and rehoming of the horse. The rules will also empower NZTR and our stewards to determine and direct actions that must take place to remedy any apparent welfare compromises and to lay thoroughbred welfare charges if warranted. I expect our new rules and welfare guidelines to be in force in 2019, as we must necessarily consult broadly with participants. Once consultation commences in a month or two, I'll be happy to supply a copy of the proposed amendments to other racing authorities. Speaking more specifically to aftercare initiatives, the partnerships approach continues. A key partner is a not-for-profit group called Beyond the Barriers. Goals of our partnership are to promote the versatility of the thoroughbred as a sport horse, delivery of education, particularly through horse and rider clinics, promotion and management of thoroughbred-specific sport horse events, support for rehomers, and promotion of these activities through social media. NZTR also partners with Equestrian Sports New Zealand, and in 2014 jointly conceived and launched the Thoroughbreds and Equestrian Sports Series, simply known as ties. Prizes are awarded to the thoroughbred that is best performed across the full equestrian season in the classes of eventing, dressage, and in jumping and show hunter. As Caroline mentioned earlier, it doesn't take much money to form a good incentive in here. I mean, with this we spend $10,000 a year for our annual sponsorship, and they're hugely appreciative of that, so a little goes a long way. Compared to warm bloods, it is well accepted, and our results show that off-the-track thoroughbreds provide a cheap yet very competitive sport horse. The Ties series is a very effective promotional event and has a great following in the equestrian community. A similar partnership has been established with the New Zealand Show Horse Council. Like Ties, the off-the-track Show Horse series is awarded to the best thoroughbred in class across the season under two components: under the saddle and fashion in the fields led. Whilst I said in the introduction that off-the-track thoroughbreds have a good chance of securing an active and well cared for second career in New Zealand, this is not guaranteed, and as any of us is aware, neglect can occur for a variety or a combination of reasons. NZTR has therefore developed a relationship with the SPCA in New Zealand. A key component of this is the active assistance in the rescue of thoroughbreds found in neglect. There have been two such incidents in the past year, one of which involved a number of mares that were due to foal. Whilst NZTR's financial support has been important, it has been access to skilled persons, horse facilities, and the racing community's network of fosterers and potential rehomers that have proven most beneficial and appreciated by the SPCA. This close relationship has meant that the thoroughbreds concerned were rehabilitated successfully, and there was no adverse media attention. Relevant to horse emergency rescues and also to the conduct of racing is the recent establishment of the New Zealand Horse Ambulance Trust, a charitable trust which NZTR actively assists. As I also mentioned, while we're a relatively small organisation, NZTR has been able to leverage the skills and resources of others with whom we can identify and share a common goal in the welfare of the horse. If you haven't already, I encourage other racing authorities to reach out to organisations in your own country or local communities that have interests in animal welfare. Not only will this enable leverage of each other's personnel and resources, it can also definitely help to build up a reserve of trust and understanding, which can be hugely valuable. It also means that you're more likely to be aware of adverse welfare issues before or instead of these becoming of media interest. My final words of advice are to ensure that these relationships stay active and enduring through regular meetings and, where relevant, written agreements or undertakings. The more time that you invest in these relationships, the more rewarding and effective they become. This slide shows a link to the welfare section of our website, which I invite you to review at some stage. Thank you for your attention this afternoon. I'll be pleased to answer any questions if there's time. Otherwise, I look forward to hearing your perspectives as we find opportunities to socialise over coming days. I wish you all the best in your own endeavours and your enjoyment of the remainder of this conference.
Feel free if there are any questions at the moment, or we can ask at the end. Anyone right at the moment for Martin? Covered everything.
Covered everything. Thank you.
Fantastic. Right. Thank you, Martin. Fantastic to hear, as we both mentioned, obviously being a rural sort of a country, a lot of people are very much across the horse industry, but there's still always plenty of work to do as far as thoroughbreds are concerned to make sure they do find fabulous lives after racing. All right, as I mentioned, after we have the open forum at around 5 to 4 before the International Council joins us here as well. So any questions we can ask, anything that you think of in the interim. Now it's time to hear about the work being undertaken in Japan, where in the past few years a lot of progress has been made addressing the issue of aftercare for Japanese thoroughbreds. Mr. Seiji Yoko is manager of the Japan Racing Association's Equestrian Affairs Division in the Equine Department. He currently organises an official committee to look at issues surrounding retired racehorses, as well as working with other aftercare groups and international racing bodies. Please welcome with his case study of Japanese aftercare, Mr. Seiji Yoko. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the very nice introduction and for inviting me to the second IFAR conference. I'm Seiji Okoe from the Japan Racing Association. I'm very proud to have this opportunity to make a presentation again this year. I'd like to share with you our current efforts and future plans for retired racehorses in Japan. First of all, I want to speak about our mission to support the well-being of retired racehorses. Responsibility. We think it must be shared by the whole racing industry. It's necessary to sustain second career support into the future. We all need to be on the same page at this point. Next is our task. Firstly, we need to find a way to lead more retired racehorses to a second career. Secondly, we are seeking feasible measures to care for thoroughbreds at the end of their careers. In other words, how do we secure sanctuary? As was mentioned at the first IFAR conference, we finally launched the special committee to address various issues regarding aftercare for thoroughbreds last December. The JRA conducts the committee. The members are made up of NAR, one of the Japanese racing authorities responsible for local racing, and representative of owners, trainers, jockeys, breeders, and government officials in charge of supervising horse racing in Japan. We hold meetings periodically to discuss a broad range of themes regarding retired thoroughbreds. Next, let me show you the current statistics about horses in Japan. As you can see, the total number of horses is around 74,000. Thoroughbreds account for about 70%, and the total, including riding horses, comes to 51,000. As for the rate of thoroughbreds in Japan, I think 70% is relatively high compared to other countries, and it can be said that this is a unique feature in Japan. It may not be too much to say that Japanese people think of thoroughbred as a horse of Japan. Therefore, we must make every proactive effort to solve the issue of aftercare. I think every Japanese horse person should be aware of the current circumstances. Next, I'd like to introduce our present support system for retired racehorses. We are providing workplaces at JRA. Currently, about 300 retired racehorses are working as a lead horse and exhibition horse on racing days. And some are used to develop riding skills of JRA officials, while others are moved to the JRA horse racing school, where trainees aim to become jockeys or grooms. The JRA continues to give retired horses a second career. Last year, we launched a retraining program that makes the transition from a retired racehorse to a riding horse go smoothly. In reference to methods developed in other countries, we are seeking a more efficient and easy way to retrain our horse in comparison. As you already know, the thoroughbred is a horse that has been improved historically through selective breeding in order to run faster. Therefore, we first need to understand the essential nature of thoroughbreds. With that understanding, we move on to the next stage of transferring a retired racehorse to a riding horse while constructing a good relationship. Our program aims to create fundamental-based training that requires a riding horse to go through 3 steps within 3 months. Let me explain briefly. This is our equestrian park where we are doing the program right now. First of all, we place a retired horse in grazing areas and paddocks for a while to adjust to the new environment. Please take a look. And this is step 1, mind reset. When a horse settles down, we attempt to desensitize a horse using various daily necessities, daily items. As you can see, he's using an umbrella in this case. Next, he's using a plastic seat. Of course, at first, these goods can be frightening for a horse, but giving a horse time and space lets them learn that not everything is frightening. Here's step 2, the groundwork. We put various lead exercises and basic touch exercises. And as you can see, free lunging in a round pen into practice. So windy. In this way, we reconstruct a trusting relationship with the horse gradually. As you can see, he already recognizes how to keep proper space as expected. We think the key is to do this process without any riding exercises until necessary base training is completed. This is step 3. In this stage, we aim to correct running balance in order to be a suitable riding horse. As you can see, mainly we train a horse with trot exercises, like sitting trot or posing trot. Unlike training race horses at racetracks, slower exercises are required for this purpose. This is a current scheme regarding our retraining program. Previously, when retired race horses were donated from owners to us, we retrained them as a riding horse at each riding center in a race course or training center in a different way. However, since last year, we have gathered such all donated horses at our equestrian park and retrained them under this program collectively. We make it a new rule to deliver the horses that completed this program to our facilities. The current plan is to have about 30 transferred per year. Besides, we are considering sharing the horses with universities or private riding clubs on a trial basis in the near future. As for the process of this program, while we are still seeking the best way through trial and error, it would be really wonderful if these efforts could raise the worth of retired racehorses and expand their second careers. We think various approaches are needed in order to support second careers for retired racehorses. These are education, expansion, promotion, and financial support. From that point of view, we are starting a broad range of projects in cooperation with JRA-related organizations. Firstly, we held a workshop to learn how to deal with retired racehorses from Mr. Boyd Martin, who is well known as a two-time Olympian on the U.S. eventing team. As you already know, he's a renowned expert in the retraining of thoroughbreds, and he also delivered the keynote speech at the first IFAR conference. Thanks to the assistance of the Godolphin team, especially for Diana and Yasuko, we took place hands-on workshop using retired racehorses at 2 venues. Through the lecture and practical riding lessons, Mr. Martin conveyed necessary knowledge and riding skills instruction in order to bring out the best in a retired racehorse as a riding horse. About 100 horse people in total took part in the clinics, and they were really impressed with his special program. We could feel his strong passion and deep devotion for retraining racehorses. In addition, I also think it's so meaningful that the last IFAR conference gave us the trigger to hold the clinics in Japan. Number 2 is an approach to foster horse culture in various regions. Compared to foreign countries, we Japanese have few chances to be in contact with horses in our daily lives, especially for children. Therefore, we need to create opportunities to have more people feel closer to horses as a first step. As you might know, there are different kinds of horses in Japan. Besides, 8 species are classified as a Japanese native horse, domestic horse. And local horse people and officials are trying to preserve them. Using these horses for pleasure riding for tourists could be helpful to attract more people's attention. From this viewpoint, we started to support local public bodies and firms to hold workshops to learn how to deal with horses safely and utilize them for leisure or educational activities. Of course, such grassroots activities might not connect second career support immediately, but in the long run, we believe these efforts will have more people interested in horse riding and other horse activities. As a result, we hope to increase second career equine opportunities. Thinking the same way, we are exploring the possibilities of retired racehorses in other fields, such as horse therapy or therapeutic riding. As a first step, we held a workshop that was an instructor program of therapeutic riding with support of HETI, world-renowned organizations regarding therapeutic riding. This workshop was a good opportunity for us to understand the versatility of horses again. In that sense, I'm also looking forward to the following presentation by Mr. Job Hudson today. Anyway, we will continue to support a broad range of horse activities to widen the appeal for more retired racehorses. When it comes to financial support, we will launch 5 new show jumping competitions for retired racehorses. Besides, we will set up more competitions in cooperation with other organizations like Rally Japan from now on. In addition, we already started to provide grants for some university equestrian clubs. Riding horses at Japanese university clubs are mostly thoroughbred. Therefore, we think financial support for these clubs could be effective to increase the second career opportunity. As I mentioned, these subsidized work have been carried out by JRA-affiliated bodies, but the seed money to allot these activities is mainly based on net profit from the JRA. The other task is to care of retired racehorses that have finished their careers. In order to take care of them, we launched a financial support system in 1997. Horses with prominent racing careers, which we call an honored horse, can access the grant. Eligible are winners of Japanese graded races who are completely retired from any other usage. The annual budget for JES is about $400,000. Currently, over 200 horses are under support. Improving the current system is one we should discuss at our Aftercare committee. In addition, we are also seeking to find a way to make financial support for aftercare organizations made directly to President at TAA or ROR. Finally, source of funding. As I mentioned, we will raise awareness to share necessary costs with horse racing industry as a whole. Taking successful case examples of other countries into account, we will consider how we should build a structure to carry out our support activities with certainty. For the future, we have strong intentions to establish sustainable funding that all stakeholders, including racing fans, can take part in. The JRA already secured the budget to move forward various activities to enhance thoroughbred aftercare. We are grateful to take part in the second IFAR conference. I believe we all have a strong will to find a better solution for the aftercare of retired horses during their lifetime. I want to convey that we at JRA have the same feeling as you. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Seiji, there from the JRA, and obviously a lot being done there. And again, as with every jurisdiction, plenty more to be done, but really interesting to hear the work that has been done and coming a long way in a short time in Japan.